I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes.
For 25 years, Pepe Deluxe have been creating, recording, breaking, and at various stages sampling and remixing. Their music for me is it's a kind of timeless kaleidoscope. It feels experimental, and it's certainly experimenting with influences. But the clear differentiator is that in addition to it being experimental, it's incredibly catchy. If you take Beatitude from 2003, you've got Black Cadillac, Numa, Daddy's Blazin BBQ, Cruel Youth, all with their own, sort of unique style, surf, spaghetti, Middle Eastern, psychedelia, trip hop. It's a weird feeling listening to a Pepe Deluxe record. The sort of the warmth and the uplift that you get from things that are familiar to you, yet also the thrill of not quite knowing what's going to come next.
Yeah.
Now there hasn't been an album from Pepe in 10 years, but things have happened, and they've just released their fifth album, which is called Phantom Cabinet Volume 1. So that's more than enough for me. I'm going to hand over to James Spectrum. So James, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've been doing. So the album came out on the 22nd of October. So from where we're recording now, a couple of days ago.
Yeah. Well, sort of, came out because of thanks to being on a British label, run by not humans but by cats. So everything, all the physical stuff is delayed.
Okay, so the physical is delayed.
Yeah. It's about a month, which is kind of cool because we had this discussion. CD being the new vinyl because it's the least consumed format. So actually, our CD has the most stuff, and the streaming version is sort of like the consumer format, where CD is the pro and vinyl is somewhere in between. People who kind of wait for the vinyl and CD, they actually get more music and a slightly different type of ending for the album. So.
Right. Okay. So a special treat for those that have to wait. Is the delay sort of production delay?
Yeah. I think it's like a global problem with especially with vinyl.
With vinyl.
Yeah. And it's and there's this it's kind of complicated subject because without going in too deep into it, that of course some companies are exploiting the fact that there's like huge demand for vinyl, so they produce, let's say, less than optimal quality. So finding the right place and trying to get them to do stuff as quickly as possible, and then having Brexit, stuff at the border, and so we were looking like manufacturing in Germany. And it'd be crazy that we first manufactured in Germany, then stopped at the border in UK, and then shipped back to somewhere like in Europe. So it started getting really complicated. But in the end, I think we found a really good option, and it's only about a month late. So coming soon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a sort of familiar story. I've heard this story from other artists that have had the same problem. So
it's really frustrating, but I think it helps a little bit. I think one of the benefits of COVID is that we've gone a little bit back to the world of like 1980s, when it was still kind of okay to be a little bit late.
To be a bit late, yes. Yes, because I guess we've got used to sort of everything being, bang.
It's a digital age, everything is like on time, above the customer's expectations.
Absolutely, yes, that was it. Yes, not just meet the customer's expectations, you need to exceed them.
Like the consultants say.
Yes, exactly. The consultants. That's always the way. So, I mean, I'm sure you've been doing interviews about the record itself, but I think it's really worth talking about because of the journey, because it's essentially been 10 years in the making, and also I think the relevance that it has to this podcast about experimental mindsets. To me, and I'll be fascinated to listen to you telling about the journey towards it. But it's really to me,
and
it seems like
our strict formula, because we're obviously a formula band like AC/DC.
Absolutely,
always the same thing.
Yes.
Predictable.
It's kind of like the embodiment of it, of this kind of mindset, because it is a real journey for you. So I mean, tell us all about it.
I think the journey is a good kind of word for that, because we don't really make records. I mean, we have this constant adventures and various kind of adventures and projects and ideas that are somehow related to music, and our records are more like documentaries, like sort of audio notebooks of what we've been doing. So there's never like a proper beginning, and even the ending is kind of so like in this case we still continue. We're going to be releasing some fun stuff at the end of this week, some extra to go with the album, and also because we, in addition to doing the music, we also participate in all the things like the artwork and the videos and all the extra stuff. So it's not really like going into a studio with a few songs and then recording them, but it's like constant process. And especially with this album, because it started like it all sort of course it goes back to the really beginning of Pepe, the working with samplers and the crate picking and the vinyl culture of finding these obscure records and sampling weird sounds. But that took when we moved on to recording and then started messing with unusual instruments, and especially when we did the recording for the you probably know the great stalagpipe organ. We did the record. The world. It's, for those who don't know, it's the largest musical instrument in the world by area, and it's located deep down underground in Luray, Virginia. It's like Jules Verne book. It's this organ that plays stalactites. So when we when we realized that it's been built in the early 50s, and about 500,000 people have seen it every year since then, and nobody had composed a single song for it before us, then we realized that there must be other hidden musical gems around the world, and there are a lot of stuff in museums and in the basements of universities and private collectors, and so we started sort of looking for this unusual, like what we call incredible instruments, and that was like a door open to a completely new universe. That was that combined with the sort of collector and researcher mindset, it was almost impossible to actually stop a little bit and finish the album, because there was always something new to be found.
Something new.
I
remember you said recently, I think, that you called it, you described it as a musical archaeology.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it is.
It's a fantastic way of sort of describing it. Look, all these almost undiscovered instruments, or undiscovered as far as music is concerned.
Or they've been used, but maybe the last time they've been played like decades or even 100 years ago. So that's sort of, and there's and some of them like Da Vinci's instruments, he never built any of them. You got the the all the designs, the blueprints, but nothing they never existed outside his mind. Finally, where people have been started building them, but they've because they are not known instruments, they haven't been recorded until until we started doing it.
I mean that's kind of quite incredible, really, isn't it? That you think about these the level of interest and how big a part of everybody's life music is. And there are these instruments that have, and nobody has thought about taking those and saying, well, okay, well, what can we make with this? I mean,
but that's part of the idea why it's called Phantom Cabinet, because it's like when instruments are taken into museums, it's many times, especially with acoustic instruments, they really do start dying if you don't play. The resonances start getting away from there. So so it's almost like you instead of we'd be listening to the Beatles and Rolling Stones or Hendrix, we'd go to a museum and see the records.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's what this is like our point that we have to be recording this before this. So we sort of consider that the recordings we have made, they are the souls, the ghosts, the phantoms of these instruments, and we have this, we have the now. So the album itself is sort of a curiosity cabinet, a museum of sounds. But at the same time, you mentioned about that, the sort of that we try to make music that that's somehow catchy, somehow enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to be. From the very beginning, we had this idea that it's not going to be like because there's these like novelty instrument collections, so it's not going to be an album like that. So it's going to be a proper music album you can enjoy without knowing anything about the background. But if you know about the background, it will hopefully give you more.
Absolutely.
So the music comes first, but it comes with, and of course, like everybody knows who's been doing any creative work, is that when you have new toys, new toys to play with, you get new ideas. So this is like just like an explosion of all kinds of toys. With many of the instruments have incredible stories and are part of the history, and so it was more like a problem of what not to write about and what not to use.
So when you came across the the organ in Virginia, did and that was the sort of the genesis of the idea.
I think that was like the beginning.
And so how did that make you feel? When you that idea started coming to you, that must have been.
Yeah, it's kind of, but it wasn't. It's always kind of easy to the way we want to remember things. It's like of course that's where it started, but things don't really happen like that in the real life. So of course we had sort of idea that there might be something else out there, and we might record a few of them. And it's like like 10 years later, and after recording something like 30 incredible and over 100 like just really wonderful instruments, it's like we ended up spending quite a lot of time on this, and so we never imagined it's going to be opening all these doors and like going into the warehouse of Victoria and Albert Museum that has something like 2.4 million objects, like straight out of the end of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, like this huge warehouse full of stuff,
full of
and
artifacts.
opening cabinets and what's here, and and okay, these are the clappers that lepers used to use in the 17th century to warn people that they are coming, and okay, let's record those. And Indian instruments that haven't been played since they were kind of probably stolen from India, like from late 19th century.
It's interesting, isn't it? Sort of thinking about you go back to sort of various periods in time in history. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and the sort of the instruments that were used then, that were made and created then. And also that there's interesting going back to some of the analog things and some of the the sort of first synthesizers that were kind of created. It's a in a way, it's a kind of logical sort of evolution that you're going back even further and saying, well, kind of like if you go back to the 18th century, what was happening then?
Well, it's surprisingly few people do anything like that. It's same thing with stalagpipe organ, because I think the problem of today is that we have everything. We have all the discoveries of the past. We have recreations of all the classic synthesizers. We have all these YouTube tutorials. And we know everything about everything instantly. We get all the info. So we don't have many of the mistakes. Like I had synthesizers for like 2 years before I actually realized that what is a resonant filter, the thing that you can do the chew type of thing. So all this not knowing things and learning by not really knowing, and not kind of you might listen to a record and learn something and learn it wrong. But because you learn it a different way, you learn a new way of sort of playing things, and you read something from a magazine, and without having the tutorial, you actually don't learn it the way it should be done. But you learn your way of doing, and like like, you know, the Ventures going to the Japan in, was it like early 60s, playing one gig and influenced so many guitar players there. But because they might have a few records, but they didn't have like YouTube tutorials. So the way they started making their surf music, it turned into something different. Like Finnish surf music is really melancholic. It's called rautalanka, so it's iron string music. So it's more like Slavic melodies, and it doesn't have, because we don't surf here. yeah. Well, some of the people do, but it's
some do.
But it's not really California. So having this sort of, you know, that like what you call it, Chinese whispers, the broken telephone effect, it's disappearing, and I think that's taking some of the creativity away, and also because everything is so. Thanks to the digital world, it's great, but it's because you have everything really quickly and instantly and cheap. That's also the downside of digital and YouTube, because you have them immediately. Then there's like, you know, there's less commitment. You are more prone to copy what everybody else is doing.
Yes, true.
So that's sort of.
That's interesting. I mean, I think that, you know, for me, you know, sort of curiosity is a you know, kind of really important part of creativity. And do you think that with that, you know, with the availability of information, that our curiosity has been affected because it's easier, or do you think in a bad way, in a good way?
Everything always goes back to the Beatles. You know, that is the fact. It still goes. Because it's like evolution thing when things were discovered for the first time, and there's quite a few rules. I don't listen to the Beatles a lot, even though I recommend the book Recording the Beatles. It's like it's the Bible of music recording. It's like it is awesome book, but I like to study it quite often, and I think there's many things that we have to realize. Like the Beatles created Sgt. Pepper. That was mind-blowing, because for the first time it gave the bands the idea that you can actually be anything you want to be, or anyone. You don't have to be the band you are. And but it was created this, like the Abbey Road Studio B. I think it's like a small white room, a bit dirty, and even at that time it wasn't like. I mean, they weren't using vintage instruments, because at that time the instruments were new, but it was like this sort of almost like a bad 80s office building. So we were working in that kind of environment, and they were, and I think because of the limitations, like they only had the 4 tracks, they were able to create something awesome, because they were constantly fighting against the limitations, or not knowing about the limitations. You know, the classic thing about Strawberry Fields, like they'd be working on different takes. And then Lennon goes like, you know, I like the beginning of this take and the end of the other take, and like, can you put them together? And the engineer goes a little bit sarcastically, like, well, they're only in different tempos and different keys. Yes. Like, okay, thanks. We'll pop in the pub, so you fix it. And they go like, oh shit, pardon. Oh, blimey! So and by accidentally realizing that by speeding up, they actually match in tempo and in key. So because Lennon didn't know it's not possible at that time to combine, then it was done. Yeah. So all these things that when you have I think limitations are crucial for creativity. It's up to yes, and the other thing is that it's surprising, but it's still like, it's quite often, if you have, you know, if you're working against something, you know, if it's limitation or something that makes upset, or something that you really want to like the thing you want to push, it's much better for creativity than having all the options and all the tools and everything available at that time.
I mean, you know,
do you agree? You as a creative person?
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's an interesting one. I think that you know, we can, you know, sort of working with limitations, you sort of know what the perhaps know what the boundaries are. But also you think, well, can I break that sort of framework? You know, and almost like not having that knowledge allows you to think, okay, well, I can break outside it, or because you don't know otherwise. You know, you can do something else. But I mean, say for the working with some of the older instruments that have more limitations plus technology, where it is limitless. So you're almost like combining the two in a way. Is that right?
Yeah. I couldn't do anything. I'm really crappy. I mean, like people, my friends said that I'm a musician. I always go like, no, I'm not a musician. I mean, I work with I play musicians. Yeah. And without digital tools, I couldn't have existed. I mean, I really respect all the people who are with great studio workers. I couldn't exist without the possibility of endless editing in the digital world. But at the same time, I realized that it's just, for me, it's like it's my extra muscle, it's my extra hands that I use for kind of putting ideas together. It overcomes my kind of my limitations.
Some limitations,
but I see it's only like a tool for putting together and adjusting things. Well, I think for me it's the creativity and creative process, especially the process of recording. It's the kind of the more you have, not even analog, but the more acoustic, the more mechanical things you have, the more you have things that have character, the more you have things that can go wrong in a really nice way, the more you have sounds that are not intentional, that sort of give you things that that are, you got this randomness and this unpredictability and this
but also I guess this is where we can recognize our own limitations, or kind of where our strengths are. Our strengths are in kind of idea creation, and then you work with other people who can take your vision and bring that to life in some way. And I guess that's kind of what you've done with your collaborators and other band members.
Definitely, it's like I said, I prefer to play musicians. I mean, I can play a little bit, but I'd sort of I don't find it that interesting. It's much more interesting to have some kind of ideas, like some boundaries. Especially that's also another interesting thing. Surprisingly, it might be changing, but quite often in studio work, it's I've heard from people that I work with that it's wonderful that I actually have I have the boundaries, let's do this, because many times, like with drummers, they are the ones traditionally who are laying the basic track without hearing anything, or just like really like super rough things. So they have like this huge responsibility of creating everything that like the groundwork, everything that's built on. So if they are sort of giving too much freedom, it might actually be frustrating to them, because they're not sure where they should be going. Whereas if you have this sort of like a roadmap that, okay, this is what's happening here and this here and maybe this kind of style here, it will never be copying anything. It will be their interpretation, but it helps them to be more creative by setting the boundaries and sort of having the limitations to work against.
I wonder again if it's that those individual musicians, be they sort of drummers or keyboards or percussion, their own
drummers,
their own
and then the other guys.
And then the others,
that's like the less important ones. We have the drums, and then we have the other stuff.
And then everything that comes around it. You have the kind of the beat and the
like I said,
rhythm.
that the purpose of music is to make drums sound good. Whereas the drummer Teppo Mäkynen, his motto is that the purpose of drums is to make music sound good, but I've turned it the other way around.
Always turning things on their head. You're so there's the as the sort of the idea, your the enjoyment that you get from sort of creating the ideas. Where does this sort of come from? Have you going back to when you were younger, when you were a kid, what were your kind of influences that kind of brought out this curiosity in you?
That's a really good question. I don't have any kind of any immediate really good answer, but I think it probably has something to do with books and writing, because writing has been my thing. And I was told that when I went to school, I didn't read at that time, but in like 2 or 3 months, I was coming back from library with like, as high piles of books
Big pile of books.
I could carry. So I think it must have been. I think there's a strange connection between books and music, because both sort of create, at least for me and also Paul, the other captain, Pepe, we create images with non-image format, like books. Many times when you have great books, you don't. It's sort of you see them without actually seeing them, and then if you see the movie version, it's like that's wrong. That's
wrong.
It's not like that. And I said that in many ways our music is more like little films you can see with your ears. So there's, especially with headphones, there's so many details, and it's really like
absolutely
trying to we're always trying to create music that's really visual and take it into places. And that's why it doesn't really work as a background music. I mean, it is sort of, it's demanding music for demanding listeners.
Absolutely.
But I think I think at least partly it comes from the fact that I've been, and also the other thing is that because the best books are always taking you to worlds. You visit all this Narnia and Lord of the Rings. You get places, and I think that little kid in me has always stayed there. So after we got over the sort of making a bit more commercial music, I think it was more like a return to the fact that I wanted to create worlds, and luckily Paul isn't against us the idea, and we are signed on a really crazy UK label that actually gives us too much creative freedom. So this allowed us to do music that's maybe reaching a smaller audience, but it seems to be that it's great. Some people have really enjoyed it. Having like, I got one of the best feedbacks I just got recently about the new album was like about the previous album that guy was saying that there was some other album by musicians I really respect coming out at the same time, and he was really bit disappointed with Queen of the Wave, our previous album. But since then, the other band has released was like 4 albums. But he's been listening to all of them together less than Queen of the Wave. That was like a grower, and he feels that it's still a fresh album. So that's sort of that's a nightmare from the point of modern world and record company promotion, and the fact that we got it's like 60,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day, every day. So that to create art that takes time before you can fully enjoy it. So it doesn't open immediately. So that goes into the fear thing, and that goes into many things. But that's also when it works. It's so lovely to get that kind of feedback that there's a person who's actually enjoyed the album for 7 years and is still enjoying it. So
I think
that's the ultimate goal for me.
It is. I mean, that's. I think. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, I agree with you.
Financial suicide, like US record company both said, but at the same time, it's a wonderful album. It's about Beatitude. It's a wonderful album. Of course, a financial suicide.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's certainly got a long duration. It's got a long life ahead of it. But I think that's. I mean, I think that's great, and that's a real. A real achievement that you can take an album that was that's made 10 years ago and in fact I'd argue with the other all the albums that you've made, like I said in the intro, they are timeless. And I think there is this even when you stopped using sampling, but even the albums post that, they still have that familiarity that's kind of comforting, that people like. Certainly for me at least, I like going back to those, listening to them. They give you that kind of, I don't know whether it's a sort of it's a real memory of a moment in time when you first heard it, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but there is certainly something about that for sure.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure if you can call it like progress, because we've gone from sampling into music that sounds like it's made from samples.
Yeah.
But it still has the sort of vibe. But that's again, this is sort of another discussion, but it's about like the making retro music versus making music that's influenced by the past. And of course, some of our compositions have the sort of more retroish vibe to it, but none of them really sound like music of the past. So and it's more about taking lots of ideas from them, enjoying the music of certain era, like from late 50s to like mid 70s, but not really trying to make clones of that, not really trying to sound like Bob Marley or the Stones, but just, and especially with us, that is combining all these different ideas and trying to build something that's new, but also because it's not like the latest sound, and especially in the modern digital world where everybody has access to the same sounds, because it's not like that, then it's also aging much slower, because it's it's not tied to this time.
With your your career, your musical career, but also the experience
career as a human being.
It's a career as a human being. Yes, not just work, because we don't like to be. We shouldn't be defined by our work. We are people.
That's really good. Yeah, good point. And and even that. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's one point where I always correct my daughters when it's like, that is going to work. Like, no, I haven't been working for a long time. I just play. My studio is a playroom. It's not a workplace. So I occasionally call something work when I do stuff for other people, but even that sort of kind of, it's more like work than work.
Yeah, I think this is what society, or the way that society is organized, is a sort of condition us to do. It's like when you meet somebody for the first time, it's like, what do you do? And people will automatically respond with, oh, I'm a lawyer.
True.
It's like, well, and okay, so that's what,
and it's even more true up here, because we are thanks to Germans, we are Lutheran country, so it's about working as hard as you possible.
Yes,
you can, and then you die of a heart attack in the fields while doing.
Yes,
but still, like when you're falling, you're still kind of pushing some of the hay.
It's that Protestant work ethic, isn't it? From sort of 14th, 15th century or so, that you have to work. And
I have it, because I've been a real cowboy. I spent my childhood. My parents divorced when I was 2, and I spent my childhood summers with my grandparents, and having that like old school work ethic there. So I think it's both good in many ways, but also it's true that it shouldn't define us as human beings. It's not about like you win when you die like that. Like, that's the achievement. I worked my entire life, never had a day off, and then I die.
And then I die. Yes.
Like, where? Yes, victory. Well, it's kind of, because also it's not just about being selfish, but we live in a world where it's not anymore about, we have to think about that it's not just about working. We have to think about what we work for and how, and like many of the goals we've had in the past, we've realized that many of the problems the world has are thanks to those goals.
And
go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, and how have you kind of defined what's important to you and what your own goals are?
That's a good and terrible question. It's like really looking.
It's like very hard. I know. It's like I used to get asked these questions, and I used to think, oh my God, I don't know, because I would never know what are your goals? I don't know. I just do it, and I've never been a particularly goal-oriented person.
But I think that's one of the things that actually defined many of the like top level, again, well, achievers. That's a terrible term, but not really work. But artists and athletes and and let's say scientist, because I got a science background, university background. It's not really about trying to achieve things, but it's really about enjoying like jumping into various things and just enjoying what you do. So many of those people aren't actually really goal oriented. It's about enjoying the process. And I think that's one of the things. I couldn't really go back in time and teach myself anything, because first of all, the fact that I didn't know about many things allowed me to achieve things, and times were different at that time. But maybe if I could give like one advice was like, that don't worry about the goals, just concentrate on doing stuff. And especially if the goals involve some kind of, tension between you and your friends, the people you work with, because there were these situations where one of the, like, you're in a band and some of them are more ambitious. And they're like, we have to do this gig. Like, why aren't you committing to it? And breaking a friendship over something, at worst case, breaking over something little, like showcase gig. None of that stuff matters in the long run.
Absolutely right.
And none of the percentage, like I'm getting 22%, but I should be getting 23.7 because I've been doing work. That's all nonsense. It doesn't matter in the long run. But that sort of, I think that's part of the youth. But also being like really kind of helps to be goal oriented, but it doesn't matter in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of found as I've got older that doing things. So there are some things that I'm good at, and there's some things that I'm not good at. Like everybody. But doing things that almost are aligned with my values, sort of what I believe in. I think for me at least, that's how I've got to, a happier place, where I'm doing things that I enjoy, but I'm doing things, like these podcasts, for example, what I enjoy doing is sort of helping people to, think about themselves, and if somebody listens to this podcast and they get something out of it, then that's a big tick for me. I've enjoyed it. So that's what I found has been important for me, rather than having particular goals, but doing things that are more in tune with what I believe in, really.
Well, I was actually recently to ask this question of like, almost stopped by this young guy who was like, were you happy at that time? Like, whoa, because you don't really get this question. And it's a funny thing happened, like especially me coming, living in a communist hell of Finland. I always love to share that with Americans, because of course, social democratic country means this is communist hell, pointing out things like free education, free universities, number one in happiness index, and the Finnish. And it's really funny that the Finnish because we really aren't, seeing us as happy people. But I think that's one of the really great questions, because it's so the happiness. Why Finland is number one is that it's kind of it's. I mean, there's always things to improve, but we have this thing that where you can make mistakes, and that the society is there. I mean, you won't fall down. Somebody will sort of reach for you and give you a new chance to do things, and it's about sort of like being comfortable with the world you're living. So it's not like I'll be as a party or sunshine or like bring out the champagne and this kind of this kind of is like it's more like like when somebody's asking how you're doing, well not too bad, which means that generally you're sort of feeling pretty okay, and that's sort of interesting happiness, because I think we should appreciate it more. Not like I'm really like I'm feeling really happy at the moment. Well, that's it's great to have these moments of like happiness explosions. But it's really important that on the average you're sort of like you said yourself, you do things that you generally feel good about.
Absolutely right.
Like this chef, and I kind of said this thing, and I kind of also had this philosophy that try to do things that you enjoy with people that you like, and avoid
Absolutely,
doing
yeah.
things you don't like, especially if they involve people you don't like.
You don't like as well. Yeah. That's the way that that negativity comes into your life, and it sort of permeates into your mind. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think people, surrounding yourself with the right people, people that not necessarily think like you, but have that sort of positive outlook and a non-judgmental and allow you to be who you are, make mistakes. Because I think that making the fear of making mistakes, is an affliction, isn't it?
Oh, it's terrible. It's both inspiring and it's like we spoke about this earlier, but it's especially when you get older. I think it's the genetic things. It's a bit like when men get ill. It's like you get a little bit of fever, and you're like, oh, I'm dying bed. I'm gonna write my will, and it's probably my last day. Whereas women, they go like, oh, well, it's like I'm steaming, but I still have to take care of the kids.
I still have to function.
You have to function. And I think it's part of the evolution thing that if men went hunting when they were a little bit ill, there was bigger chance of them dying, and then it would affect the whole family because there was nobody bringing in food. Whereas women had to function. Even when they're ill, because that would be like disaster. So I think the fear thing is also might be like evolutionary thing that especially with men who survive to be a little bit older, there's like it's natural for them, like they have so much knowledge, and the same thing with women, but somehow for them it's a bit, I think it's more about the society has been like forcing them into being something, and then that when they grow up they grow more confident to sort of open up into this. But but many of these things, I think it's not just mental, but it's actually part of us as big apes. It's part of our genetics. How like it's almost like a rule book of growing older. So these are the things that will happen to you most likely. And also realizing them always as a creative person, and also a person who interested in learning about life. Like I've got some people who I don't really call friends, but they are a bit difficult, and I use them like a mirror when in a way that what are the things that they do that upset me, and why do I upset like that? Like they might have like pretty strong right-wing comments, and I try to analyze that. What in me makes me react this strongly? That how can I not because most of the time, even with people who you disagree with, if you speak with them, face to face, most of the comments, I mean, there might be exaggeration and that kind of like pushing things too far, but most of us actually think pretty much the same about things. We all want to be loved, and we all want to achieve good things. And even the things that people, I think the bad thing about internet is that you don't get the whole discussion. You got just like the narrow punches and nothing else. Whereas most of the people us actually want the same things, the same, like the security and a little bit of happiness, and knowing you'll be able to get shelter and food and these basic needs.
Yeah, this is interesting about about again sort of about the internet and how
what kind of a music interview is this? We're going
absolutely, yes. We're not talking about music at all.
Great.
I was reading a book, one of Noam Chomsky's books.
Yeah.
I think it was called about anarchy. And he was saying that he was a TV presenter had said the reason that he doesn't ever get asked to go on his show is because he is not concise. So and Noam Chomsky said, because the world that we live in and the stuff that I'm talking about, you cannot be concise. You can't, and that is exactly the thing that people try to bring things down to some, just a few words or one sentence, and it can't possibly be like that. And like you say, when you actually get to talk to people, you can usually find with most people some common ground, even if you have those differences.
Actually, a lot of common ground. It's like almost like too much. Like you'd like to. I mean, this is the way. Like if nations are fighting against each other, you get all these stereotypes and turning them into like the monsters, but realizing they are exactly the same kind of people.
Yeah.
And it's just like a few people have made these terrible mistakes, which leads into this all kind of mess. But in the end, it's just we are all different, but we are all the same in so many ways. Yeah.
With I mean, this thing about sort of making mistakes. I mean, I'm sort of interested in it. You know, like over your life, you know, when you've how have you dealt with, you know, any sort of mistakes or even kind of fears that you've had? You know, how have you? Because sometimes for people, when you make a mistake, it can be, you know, sort of crippling. You know, you think,
yeah. You know, I know. I'm one of those personalities who always remembers all the sort of mistakes I've made.
The bad thing, I know.
But I try to think not really like bad things, and it's like I have this approach that I am here as myself now because you know the path I've chosen, and I wouldn't go back. I mean, it's like one of two things. I wouldn't change them, but I wish I wouldn't have hurt some people. But it's not like I wouldn't like to change them, because I know that every time it's like it's a new path. It's like you open the door, and you can't go back. So it's like the idea of I think it's really sad if when there are people who think that they should have done something different in their life. Like it's like it's we can't go back. We can only go forward. So we should learn about learn from the mistakes. Also realizing that we might have made a lot worse mistakes without making those mistakes. That's also I try to think about it. And as a creative person, I try to, well, occasionally creative person, I try to kind of like intentionally face these things. That what are the things that make me upset? What are the sort of things that don't work? And is there like a creative angle? And every time I actually enjoy these things where there comes like, you have to do something that is all these limitations. And usually my first thought as an immature person is like, how can I break these rules? How can I like no, the image can't have any pixelation. So of course I'm going to be hiding, like there comes the rules for like Apple Music, no pixelation. So I have to hide some pixelation in the photo. So it actually becomes turning the opposite. So and I think the same thing applies to, or I try to apply the rule to mistakes. That what are the things that I can learn from them, and what are the things, what are the mistakes, sort of not really. I think even the whole concept of mistake, it's a little bit like work. It's like, how do you define? Because you have to go like 500 years in the future.
To
make
I agree.
that wasn't actually a mistake, because your son's daughters, like this story, like this, it's like this endlessly forking tree. Everything leads to new things. And
I think this is really interesting when you've hit something there when you say about because it's almost like saying, well, this is the way that a mistake has been defined for centuries. If you do this, that is a mistake. It's like, well, okay, well, the world is a lot different now, and it's very kind of uncertain and complex. And it's almost that I think sometimes with language as well. Sometimes language, the language that we've been taught, doesn't always work for us now.
Yeah. That's why I kind of encourage that hopefully my kids will learn more languages, because English is my third language. Unfortunately, my Swedish is really crappy, but it does change, like the way you can bend, twist words in Finnish. I'm a different person in Finnish. And having more of this is like almost like having different versions of you, the different languages. It's like opens your brain. So many things open your brain. That's one of the things. Also, when you read books in different languages, it kind of gives you slightly different angles to the world. And again, I think that's one way of communicating, not just like individuals, but with the whole world and with culture, realizing like, why the French are so damn difficult. Well, it's actually a good thing that because they have a really strong culture, and instead of taking it as a threat or something. I mean, we can joke about the Swedes, and they joke about less about us because we are the kid brother. But realizing that it's all these things is actually really fascinating, and it's there's so many things, especially as creative persons, that we can learn from and take from. So sort of welcoming the differences and welcoming the strange behaviors, and I think it goes to the same thing, like forgetting the term mistakes, taking these paths that didn't lead to results you were expecting.
Absolutely, yes, yes, that's right. Which is the whole point of sort of experimentation, isn't it? You know, if you can see your life as a sort of series of experiments, that you will do something. You will say, okay, well, let's try this. It doesn't work. Yes, society may have classified that as a mistake, but actually, it's not a mistake. It's just it's the way that scientists work. It's data.
And jazz musicians just
repeating
their mistakes and becomes a lick. But that's the whole point. That's actually, it's sort of a fun cliche, but that's true. But that is like unexpected discovery of a new idea. My body didn't obey me completely, but actually it showed me a new idea here. So
a new idea. Yeah. I think the other sort of call it an attribute, let's say, that I think these days is very important is empathy.
Definitely.
Particularly where you're working, well, not just working, living, through life, whether it's in any aspect of your life, especially for other people, and with the polarization that we see a lot of the time, being able to demonstrate empathy. I mean, how have you experienced that over the years?
And I think the empathy is especially, that's kind of, I think that's one of the points that sort of one of the problems we have internet, that it's more difficult to have empathy if you have just this, these short written comments, like you can't squeeze empathy into Twitter messages.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think I think it's always been important, but it becomes even more important because the fact is that our generation and our children are facing huge problems that will involve a lot of these questions, because the whole the planet is changing. So all this like many of our what we call problems now are really like Blues Brothers thing. It's the small change stuff. It's not
small change.
These aren't the problems. The big problems are like the sort of things that we are trying to avoid. But also these are the things where we really kind of, if we don't have empathy, there's only a few steps to really kind of dreadful results. Like good people making really bad decisions.
Yeah.
Even in Nazi Germany, it wasn't any of the most dreadful things weren't that they were like these monsters, but they were just like little people doing their jobs.
And
just these are just numbers. I'm just moving these numbers from one place to another, and then they disappeared, and all those numbers were humans. So it's without the empathy, it's
I mean, as well. I mean, for getting things done as well, and like I said, I think our world is so complex now. Something that was quite straightforward 20 years ago is not straightforward now. And in anything that we do, any kind of like sort of creativity, and I'm thinking of your kind of ideas, this when you have your ideas, and then how to sort of bring those, which is constant as well, helping to if you take a have a sort of change of direction, or in your music, for example, how to bring along the other musicians who may be a little bit more thinking, oh, I don't know, having that empathy to be able to see it from their perspective, must be important as well.
And especially not really in Pepe, because we are like we're called like what's the term, like like positive dictators. I mean, it has to be sort of that kind of a director's approach of having. I hate because it sounds so like self-improvement, but you have to have some kind of vision, some kind of
I see.
Not really like that really knowledge about that this is exactly the goal, but sort of the idea about direction, and also kind of even if you don't know about it, you still have to project it, because you have to have there needs to be a captain showing the direction.
Yes.
So it helps everybody to know, okay, we're heading at this direction. Even if the captain, like, I got no maps, I got no idea where we're going, but we're heading this way, because it helps everybody to work together. But I think the empathy is even more important when you work as a hired person for other people, especially if your job is to bring out their creativity and their best like bring out their best side, and there's always a struggle, because it's about empathy and also your opinion and your aesthetics versus their opinion, and sometimes it's not easy. Again, it's a gray area, like how much you're going to be pushing your idea because you really think it's a really good idea, and how much you kind of realize that even though you might not like their idea that much, but it's much more important for them to feel comfortable. It goes again to empathy.
Empathy, yeah. And how do you feel about another area that I think is important is more kind of collaboration in all parts of life between different age groups. The historically, I don't know how it is in sort of Finland or in your experience through your life, that we've kind of been segregated.
There are so few of us here that we don't have to collaborate, because there's only like the next neighbor is like 50 kilometers away. So
I see. Okay, yeah.
No, just kidding.
So you have some practical restrictions.
No. It's actually. I think it's even more important when you come from a small country to kind of, help each other and not like, what's the term? Is it like crab bucket? Like where crab, those creatures, how you pronounce it? Crab. Those crab. These crabs. Yeah. But when you put them in a bucket, none of them can climb out because the others are pulling them.
Yes.
So that kind of.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So especially in small places, it's dreadful of how damaging the unempathy and the sort of kind of slowing down and the envy and feelings like that can be, and how helpful it can be when you're pushing other people. And it's also a question of like mistakes. That's one term, but also honesty. It's like I think it's always better to give people who do this is a big question, but is it when somebody asks about your opinion on some art, especially if you're other artist, is it honest to say that I think it sucks because it's just your personal opinion, or it's like or is it more honest to try look for things that you like and encourage the person to do, because it's just one piece of it's about, because as an artist you're not commenting just on the work, but you're actually commenting that
on the
person,
individual. Yes, you're right. Absolutely right. You're right. Totally
and
right.
This is something like I think this is super important. It's people, especially people who do any kind of creative work or buy creative work or work with other creative people, is to learn to give feedback that sort of helping people to create better things instead of slowing them down or damaging them or because it's not about in the long run it doesn't matter if I'm not talking about that you should be dishonest, but you should be like encouraging the things that you think that are good. I agree. And that's again really it's a skill that you can never become a master. It's like BB King, like, you know, you're a master of blues. No, I'm learning everything every day till the day I die.
I totally agree. I like that phrase. You know, all creativity is valuable. It all sort of has a value. You know, in some way, you as the observer just may not see it. It just may not be because you don't, because of your who you are, your composition. You just don't see that. But somebody else may do. Somebody else may look out there and love it.
Yeah,
and it does have a value for somebody.
There's a situation where you can improve. Most of the time you can make things somehow better, but there's like it's a skill of knowing that this is not any, like if something is finished, then it's finished. Like, you know, there's no point saying like, you know, well, actually I don't like it at all, especially if you're another artist, because it's just like, you know, it's just about, you know, spreading negative energy. So if you can't say anything good, then you can just kind of avoid the subject, like should we have cups of coffee?
Absolutely. Absolutely right.
Let's get stoned. Instead of giving this energy that won't help you or the other person. So well, listen, James, and of course one, and of course the other way that you should also, especially if you're helping other people, to have the courage of telling them that I believe that you can deliver something even better. That's the other side of the coin. That's also really important. Like like knowing how far you can push people to help them to, you know, overcome their fears, because that's goes back to fear. Many times people are having like holding on the, you know, the sardine or playing like instead of going like because they are afraid. So it's about go.
I think that's right, and again that constructive encouragement, you know, and you know, having that empathy for other people. Okay, well, if I say to you, James, this sucks. This really sucks. You know, it's like how are you going to feel when you get that? It's like,
well, that's normal. I'll live with wife and 2 girls, so. I'm so used to it. Like my ego is like this.
Is that
okay?
Okay. It's another day.
Shut up, Dad.
But you know, but if you know that you get that kind of constructive feedback, then you know it's okay. Well, you're showing some concern for the other person. It just makes us kind of better human beings.
Will we sound like chipmunks because now you have to speed up the interview in order to fit in the like 1 hour or something like that?
Yes. I think we're okay. We've had everything from, you know, kind of 35 minutes to then somebody was at 40 minutes and then they had to leave to get a plane through to like an hour and a half. So we're
So this is not a new record. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Yeah. So brilliant, James. Well, listen, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and learning from you and listening to, you know, your views. So thanks very much indeed. And
see you in 10 years. No, actually,
actually,
the volume 2 is about 85% ready. That was also part of the thing. Because so we try to come up with the new album in sooner than 10 years. So
wow. So this is going to be like in the UK. There's a sort of saying that, you know, you never see a bus for 10 years, and then 2 come along in half a year.
But the volume 1 is sort of a hint about something about like
that's something else that there may be a volume 2 coming. Although you may surprise us.
It might be volume 3.
Yes. Then everybody will be thinking, have I missed something here?
That's actually a pretty good idea. Where is Pepe? Excellent.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, James. I really appreciate it. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.